How is Twilight Princess not on Nintendo Switch? I think you can play every other mainline Zelda game on Switch, outside of A Link Between Worlds and the 2 DS games nobody talks about, but not Twilight Princess? That just doesn't seem right. Maybe they're saving it for the Switch too. Welcome to completion number 100 of the Potato Backlog project. I've had this one sitting around since the day it released on Wii U. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video for the eternal battle between light and shadow, the Tater Raider, and let's talk about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. I didn't even know I needed to be upset this game wasn't on Switch. I've owned this game 3 different times over the years and just never got around to playing it. I had the GameCube version, the Wii version, and as mentioned before, the HD re-release on Wii U. I sold the GameCube version before I could play it. I started the Wii version, but the motion controls were just not for me, no matter how much I wanted to play it. In 2016, they released the HD version to the Wii U with no motion controls. I bought it, and now 8 years later, I finally played through it for the first time. I'm actually kind of happy my first experience and first playthrough of this game was in 2024. It brought back feelings I used to get gaming as a kid, my first experience with Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess brought it all back. The music, the visuals, the familiarity of it all. And I just don't get that type of emotional experience with most games I play these days. I think everyone that loves games deserves a chance to play Twilight Princess, but so few people owned Wii U's. This is why we need it on Switch or whatever Nintendo's follow-up system ends up being. In my headcanon, I've decided that Nintendo is secretly working on a beefed up remaster of this game. And the reason they didn't just put the Wii U HD version on Switch is because they're saving it for Switch 2. Fat chance, I know, but everybody has to have dreams. Originally released in 2006, Twilight Princess is already almost 2 decades old. This for me feels like the peak of the old 3D Zelda formula that started with Ocarina of Time, though Nintendo would also go on to release Skyward Sword for the Wii with the same type of style and game design. I just haven't played it yet because, again, motion controls back in the day. Yes, I have the remake on Switch. Yes, it's on my backlog list. Yes, I will play it and make a video of it very soon. But for now, for me, Twilight Princess is the peak of this 3D design formula. The game itself sets a much darker tone right off the bat. There's a darker story, there's a darker world, and there are just some weirder than usual characters running around Hyrule this go around, which is kind of funny to say since Legend of Zelda games have always had some pretty out there characters. But in Twilight, there's this sad clown looking dude, for example, who winds the crank for a jack-in-the-box that doubles as a giant cannon that sends you to other places across the world. And it's kind of all just really great. The light and dark motifs return here, as well as a kind of traveling between 2 worlds that exist on the same plane. When you enter the Twilight realm, you're transformed into a wolf. This version of Link comes with his own unique attacks and special abilities. As you unravel the mysteries of the world and the story progresses, you will come to understand more about why you're transforming, as well as what it all means to you and your traveling companion Midna. Although I found the first 2 hours of this game a little bit slow, once you gain the ability to transform freely between Wolf Link and Link, the game really opens up and finds its legs. Twilight just works on so many different levels for me personally. It has the nostalgia going for it. A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time are 2 of my favorite games ever. But it's not all nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses driving the train for me here. Twilight has some excellent world and dungeon designs that I feel still hold up well in 2024. The overworld is a little rough around the edges, and by today's standards, a little sparse with things to do when compared to its overall size. But that doesn't take away from the feelings you get as you travel through it. Looking for secrets, searching for your next task, finding and meeting new characters, the tiny rush you get when you do unlock new secrets, the musical chime, finding hidden chests and items. This exploring is augmented by some of Wolf Link's new abilities. Tracking scents and being able to dig things up can lead to rupees, much needed item replenishments, or you might find yourself digging your way into a hidden cave that holds a coveted piece of heart, or a stamp. Yeah, the stamp thing was it was a thing on Wii U. Let's just leave it at that. The world itself is meant to feel large and very wide open, full of possibilities and wonders, just like Ocarina made me feel back in the late 90s. Epona, Link's horse, is present to once again help you navigate this massive world. You have the ability to also engage in combat while riding her. This for me didn't age as well as some of the other things in the game, but it was kind of a first pass at horse riding combat in a Zelda game for Nintendo, and overall it functions well enough to get by. You have the ability to swing your sword at bad guys on both sides, use your bow and arrow and other items freely. The biggest issue for me revolved around controlling Epona and the camera to locate the enemies in a timely manner. It just didn't feel super fluid. In the end, I avoided horseback combat for the most part, only engaging with it when I absolutely had to. Before I opened up a good amount of portals to fast travel through Hyrule, I actually ended up using Wolf Link a ton to run from place to place, much more than I used Epona. At one point in the story, Epona kind of just disappears, and when you get her back, you still have to find these special grass pieces to call her. There is a specific whistle item you do eventually receive, but it is very late game when you get it. By the time I got the item, I had a ton of fast travel portals open, and I was already just used to running around as Wolf Link. So Epona fell by the wayside a little bit for me in this game. Twilight Princess did include some story sequences that worked in some pretty epic Epona moments, so it isn't like you won't ever see or use her. You just might not rely on her as much as you would have in other Zelda games. Twilight Princess Dungeons, the biggest winner and brightest element of the game for me. As I mentioned before, I have yet to play Skyward, and I also haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet. But I think for me currently, this might be the Zelda game with the best amount of good dungeons in it. There was always a couple stinkers in other Zelda games, the Water Temple and Ocarina. Though that was reworked in future re-releases of that game, it was just always a massive drag. Breath of the Wild didn't even really have any dungeons at all. But man, oh man, does Twilight Princess nail the dungeons and the bosses. Each dungeon feels extremely unique and perfectly fits the landscape or part of the story you're currently in. There are times in the game when you don't really even know that you've started a dungeon because they are so seamlessly integrated into the flow and pace of the game. Snow Peak Ruins comes to mind. It seems like you're visiting this Yeti's house to help him out with his sick wife. He needs to make some soup, as you do, and the house itself is actually the dungeon. The whole thing plays out in a fun and unexpected way. There are 9 major dungeons in total, each with sub-mini bosses and major end bosses. Lots of the end bosses are also multi-phase battles. Most have pretty well thought out mechanics, and all of them are visually impressive encounters even now in 2024. They stood up as exciting, fun experiences for me. Just imagine some of these battles in revamped 2024 textures and models. Switch to release, please. Twilight Princess gameplay is traditional linear Legend of Zelda game design. You find a dungeon, get an item that helps you through that dungeon. It also usually helps you unlock new parts of the overworld, which in turn gets you to your next dungeon. This is kind of the TLDR version of the traditional Legend of Zelda game design. Nintendo has now started to move away from this style of Zelda game with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom releases. They also experimented with a choose your next dungeon style game in A Link Between Worlds, and that's okay. After playing the Twilight Princess, I can kind of see why. There are only so many times that you can make this game, only so many times that you can write this story and just kind of plot it out for the player point to point to point. I still had an amazing time with this game, and I think most gamers will enjoy everything it has to offer. I only bring it up because I understand the need for Nintendo to continue developing the series. Things need to evolve, but I also think everybody should be given the opportunity to go back and experience all of the mainline Zelda titles today in 2024. We are lucky enough to have another brand new Legend of Zelda game on the horizon in Echoes of Wisdom. I am truly excited for that game, so if we don't get Twilight Princess released on Nintendo Switch, we will have something new to play soon, and we can always hold out hope that we see something down the line on Nintendo's new console. The easiest 5 happy potato faces out of 5, an absolute classic that still holds up today. Twilight Princess is still findable and out there for Wii U, though it's not exactly a cheap game these days. All the more reason that we need a re-release, as everybody should have a chance to play this game. But with that, the Backlog project rolls on. 100 games down, 331 more to go. Thank you so much for watching and all of the support. Be kind to yourselves and others that deserve it. We're on to the next 100, so let's go.